All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone out there. Welcome. I want to thank you all for watching. I know it's been a while since I've gone live, since I've had guests on. I know probably most of you forgot all about me. Well, I'm back, and I'm back with some really good guests. My friend Billy, who's been on before, he's joining me once again this evening. Hello, Billy.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. And Billy has introduced me to someone new, so first time interacting with her this evening, and that's Alexandra Levine. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you all on. All right, so this evening we're going to be discussing all the drama around Pete Hegseth. Now, if you're anything like me, all you really knew about Pete Hegseth before Donald Trump nominated him, put him up for Secretary of Defense, is that he was a Fox News host and that he served in the military. That was the extent of my knowledge when it came to Pete Hegseth. Obviously, since then, it's all blown up with scandal, accusations, and all that kinds of stuff. So I'm excited to have Alexandra on because she is a true fan of Pete. So we look forward to getting her input here. So obviously, we have to start off, and we're going to touch on this briefly, with the allegations of sexual assault. All right? This is one of the first things that popped up, and it just spread like wildfire, as these allegations always do. And it's interesting how all this stuff always comes to the surface just as someone's been nominated or is running for something, right? That's when it always pops up. Never before. So we're not going to go so much into it because I feel like the best analysis of this situation was done by Megyn Kelly, who went over the paperwork. She went over the papers with a fine-tooth comb. So I'm going to have a link to that in the description once I'm done, and please check that out. But we are going to talk about it a little bit. For those of you who are not aware, back in October 2017 in California at a Women's Republican event, Pete Hegseth was the speaker, and he ended up getting accused by a Jane Doe of sexual assault. And mind you, from this was investigated thoroughly by the police, and it never went anywhere. No charges were ever brought. Nothing came of that. Now, Alexandra, I'm going to throw it to you. What have you seen about this, and what's your opinion on it?
Exactly what you just said. I mean, you define the law perfectly. They went in front of the judge with it. The judge saw there was no evidence to what this girl was saying in regards to rape, and the whole thing was thrown out. It does remind me of the situation that happened with Congressman Matt Gaetz as well. As you know, he was first nominated as the Attorney General, and then of course they all came out with false accusations of him having sex with a 17-year-old girl, and the DOJ, they combed through it. They did a whole investigation, and they didn't convict Matt Gaetz because they absolutely saw nothing wrong. But then the House Ethics Committee acted like, or acts like, they know more than the DOJ, and they were trying to throw this BS report to try to hurt the man. So I really feel that this is the Democrats, the deep state, the rhino establishment trying to hurt a good guy like Pete Hegseth, who wasn't convicted of a crime. They're acting like he's a convicted felon. They're acting like he's a pedophile. And again, like you said, like you emphasized, there was no charges brought against him. He didn't go to jail. He wasn't convicted. So it's this whole thing where a man like Pete Hegseth, who's a military man, a man of honor, who served in Operation Iraqi Freedom, he comes in, he wants to shake up the military. He wants to fix the military, wants to get rid of the wokeness of the military. And of course, the deep state, the establishment, they can't have it. So they're just going to throw this to try to hurt his approval, his nomination. And they're trying to hurt him from getting through with the Senate Republicans.
Absolutely. Billy, you got anything to add to that?
Absolutely. So this goes back to when I used to call chat lines. And I'll tell you how this all ties in just a minute. But when I used to call chat lines to kill the time when I was a petty security officer in Las Vegas and really had so much time on my hands to kill, I'd call chat lines on my cell phone. That's how I'd get rid of my boredom. And of course, you talk to random people from across the nation. And of course, there's a lot of bashing and trashing going on. And if somebody doesn't like you and they don't know anything about you, they're really going to scrape the bottom of the barrel. They're gonna say you're ugly or you're fat when they never even seen a picture of you, or they're going to call you a child molester, or they're going to say you're gay or whatever. They're just going to use these petty insults to really scrape the bottom of the barrel. And lately, how that's leaked over into politics is scraping the bottom of the barrel is calling somebody a racist, or having sexual accusations against them. And that's what I think exactly happened here with Pete Hegseth. Is somebody didn't like him, so they scraped the bottom of the barrel and found this Bravo Sierra.
Yeah, and this Jane Doe is what she's referred to in most of what I've seen for publications. Is what's interesting is that part of her accusation was that she believed that she had been drugged. Now, mind you, I believe it was about 5 days after the incident that she came forward, that she called the police. So obviously, would have been out of her system, all that. But I do know from watching Megyn Kelly's coverage of it and going through the filings, is that when witnesses talked about seeing Jane Doe and Pete Hegseth together, they said that Pete Hegseth was more clearly inebriated. He doesn't even remember getting in an argument. But everyone reported that she was fine, that she seemed to in no way be under any kind of influence of a single thing, nothing. Even to the point because her husband was in another hotel, actually, with their kids, from what I recall Megyn covering. And so when she returned even to her husband, he reported that she seemed completely coherent and absolutely fine. So mind you, I get it. I get it and all that stuff. It is a serious allegation at the end of the day. But from what we've seen, it was thoroughly investigated. I believe she was even asked if she wanted to, do a wire, have the police authorities listen in, have a conversation with him to see if she could get Pete to admit to anything. And she refused. But also prior to that, now what's interesting is that apparently she also texted her husband when she met him, saying that she found him creepy, or creepy, and that he wore a ring on his pointer finger and all this stuff. Now this is her meeting him right at the event, and then being with him later at the bar. I don't know. I'm just going to speak for myself. I'll just speak for myself. In my dating years, or in my years, like in general, being at bars, if I ever felt that a guy was creepy, I can promise you I never went anywhere with him. If I genuinely felt that someone who was hitting on me was creepy, I never left the building with them, all right? In fact, I would be leaving with someone else if I really felt that. So, like I said, I'm just speaking for myself. I don't want to say, that something's impossible. That's just my perspective on it. So, does anyone else have anything left to regarding this that I want to say before we move on?
Well, I think you mentioned something that probably anybody should, with any common sense in their head, should mention, that if they feel that someone's creepy, why are they leaving the establishment with them? It makes no sense.
Yeah. And also, there would have been videos of her stumbling and bumbling and looking drunk and being on drugs, going into his hotel room, and there was no evidence of that.
Exactly. Actually, the recordings show the opposite. From what I read, the recordings from the hotel, from the lobby, from where they had the argument, which I think was in the courtyard, show that Pete seems to be stumbling a little bit, not her. She seemed, and actually the security that came to the argument to address it said that she seemed completely coherent as well.
Yeah,
so like I said, this doesn't prove anything, but when you factor all this together, and that the authorities, once they got all the information, felt that there was no reason to press charges, I don't know. This seems pretty thoroughly investigated, if you ask me.
I agree with you.
So before we move on, so I do want to quickly thank those who are commenting. Vinny, thank you so much. Also, please, anyone watching, feel free to comment with questions, opinions, anything at all as we go through this topic by topic. All right, sorry, Alexandra. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's fine. No, I was just saying case closed.
Case closed. It does. It feels pretty much like case closed, if you ask me. All right, so we're actually going to go on to the next scandal, and I can't even believe that this is a scandal, and that is Pete's so-called racist tattoos. All right. Now, for those that are unaware, Elizabeth Warren recently made a little, she did a little yelling about this. Specifically, she yelled a little bit about a tattoo on his arm, which that tattoo right here, as you can see, is Latin. I believe it's pronounced Deus Vult, and it just means God wills it. Now, I know we live in a more secular nation, and, religion is associated for a lot of people on the left with, racism, sexism, and all that stuff. But it simply means God wills it. What are your opinions on this, guys? I mean,
Alexandra, you go ahead first.
Okay. I was just saying, this whole thing is ridiculous. First of all, I have friends that are in the military that serve in the American military as well as the IDF. They all get tattoos together in the military. Mm-hmm. And I know that Pete did get tattoos with the people in his military base. So these are men and women that are serving our nation, that are putting the Constitution on their arm. They are putting even crosses all over their body to represent the beauty of the religion that they celebrate, but also to represent that they are fighting for us underneath this flag. And it's an honor. It's an honor what they do. And for Elizabeth Warren, who in my opinion is not godly at all, and who in my opinion does not support the military at all, of course she's going to attack Pete Hegseth for this type of tattoo or any tattoos that he has. And we also know that Senator Warren is not going to vote to confirm Pete Hegseth. So she's just trying to give herself a voice, and she has no voice in this.
I know. Well, our very own Fohantis, Mm-hmm. I mean, I think my friend of pure Swedish heritage probably has more Native American in him than, he immigrated here from Sweden, and I think he may have more, Native American than Liz Warren. Mm-hmm. Elizabeth Warren.
We all do on this show.
I know, exactly. But so she freaked out about this. Now, obviously, Pete is well known for his tattoos. He has a number of them. But the next one that's controversial, and this is also another amusing one right here, is the cross. He has, which specifically, I believe, the Jerusalem cross, right? And this is from the Crusade era. Now, once again, this is a Christian symbol. This is one of the ones that a lot of people have referred to, and I've seen this on much of social media, as a white supremacist symbol. Now,
well, that's because I've seen it on KKK shields. Just because the KKK have used it doesn't mean that that's what it originally meant. This is stupid.
Yeah. I mean, if we want to reference another historical, which has become a symbol, seen as a symbol of hate, is if we go to the swastika, it's thousands of years old, right? The swastika is thousands of years old, long before World War II and Hitler, right? And it goes back to meaning peace, prosperity, a number of different meanings in a number of cultures. Because we see, unfortunately, hateful individuals and groups will cling on to a symbol that does not mean what they then try to twist it into. Now, mind you, I'm going to pop this up for you guys, then we're going to discuss this, because this I just love, right? Obviously, we recently, Jimmy Carter passed away, and they had his funeral. Now, what do you think where they had his funeral, and where Biden gave the eulogy, and where Obama and Harris sat? What symbol do you think was on the floor right underneath the casket? Let's check this out, folks. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Look, right there at the National Cathedral. And think about that for a moment. That means that Obama, Harris, and Biden sat there before this Nazi symbol and didn't say anything. I'm sorry. I have to poke because it's just absolutely insane. Alexandra, I'm gonna throw it to you. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Jewish. I'm 100% Jewish. So, like I said, I've known Pete. One thing I love about Pete is he's very supportive of Israel, very supportive of the Jewish people, and he loves going to Israel. And he always said that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. He's always recognized that, and he's been invited to the Republican Jewish Coalition to speak many times. If he was a white supremacist or if he was pushing white supremacy, he wouldn't be invited amongst that coalition. They're a very strict coalition. So again, people are making noise of these tattoos because they know in the back of their mind that Pete Hegseth is perfect for this position, but they're just trying to gaslight him and try to stop him from being confirmed. And this was very hard for him because he had to convince a lot of Senate Republicans to get him confirmed. And I know for a fact that he has the votes now to be confirmed and to go through. But he's had to do, unfortunately, he's had to kind of explain himself to people, explain these tattoos, explain his life to people that do know him and people that have loved him, but he's had to re-explain his life to people to try to get a vote out of someone when they know in the back of their mind that he's a good man. He served our military. He supports our military. He wants to go back to the values of the military. And that's why this whole thing is so asinine. And they really need to stop nitpicking on him because it actually makes him stronger, not weaker.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Billy?
Yes. So what I'm going to say when referring to tattoos alone, because I've got a few tattoos, mostly a tribal tattoo. I've got a Celtic cross and a pit bull's head on my shoulder. And I actually have the Chinese character for victory. Of course, the tribal designs because I'm Native American, of course, but I'm part Scottish, but I'm not Asian at all. I kind of like the phrase of victory, and that's why I have it tattooed. Tattoos are art, in my personal opinion, and art is left to one's imagination, whether it be a painting on the wall, whether it be music, whether it be tattoos. It's left to one's imagination. So, Dee Snider of Twisted Sister really emphasized this very well when he was in court with the, what do they call I can't remember the acronym, but basically it was over censorship over music. And Tipper Gore was really criticizing his song Under the Blade, I think is what it was called, that's Dee Snider wrote that song about his bandmate who had to have surgery, and his bandmate was scared to death because he was going to have this surgery. So he wrote that song for him. Tipper Gore says that that song is all about sexual sadomasochism and all that. Dee Snider said, just as I said, art is left to one's imagination. Anybody who was looking for surgery references would have found it in that song. But she was looking for sadomasochism and she found it. So it's all in the imagination. So we look at Elizabeth Warren. She's looking for racism and she's looking for bigotry, and she found it in her own mind.
It's kind of like how people look for offense everywhere. It's like in the song "Baby It's Cold Outside," right? I mean, if you're of a certain age, you're going to see that as a reflection of an era where there was that dance between a man and a woman, a flirtation, right? She was playing that hard to get, even though she was interested, and he was that pursuer. It was that flirtation, that back and forth. So if you understand the cultural reference of the era, you're not going to see it that way. But if you're like a modern feminist, you're going to see it as well, a sexual assault song. But one more thing I do want to touch on, just because Vinny mentioned it, and people, please do stay with us, because we're about to get into some real stuff regarding Pete Hegseth and his view of don't ask, don't tell, and of course, women in combat. Vinny mentioned the pictures that have gone viral in the video of Trump and Obama laughing. Now, when I posted that, I was like, my view was, what does the first black president of the United States do when he is seated next to the reincarnation of Hitler? Well, apparently he laughs with him, enjoys a laugh with the man. That is apparently what, he does. So it's just absolute insanity, right? I mean, because if Trump and Hegseth are racist, especially if they're anti-Semitic. They are really bad at it. Really bad at it. So with that, we're going to move on to Pete Hegseth and Don't Ask, Don't Tell, because this one is more recent in regards to it's still getting a lot of attention, and a lot of people are then accusing him of flip-flopping in regards to this. So our first one that we're going to discuss with this, obviously, so CNN covered it a little bit. Obviously, they're going to have their own swing on it, but I wanted to specifically use this because CNN on its in the same article acknowledges something about Pete Hegseth. So just cover a little bit. Apparently in his book and following that, Pete Hegseth has referred to, the repeal of, allowing gay people to serve openly in the U.S. military, calling them part of a Marxist agenda. Which, for a lot of people that aren't aware, by the way, that actually is referenced in Marxism, pushing homosexuality, at least as a cultural thing. Now, before you jump on me, I am a homosexual man. All right, I am a gay man. You're definitely probably going to disagree with my take on this. I just, I hate to even have to say that, but let's face it, we live in a world where people would try to shut this down just for me even referencing this. All right, so Pete Hegseth, at the end of the day, referred to this, the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, the repeal later on, as a gateway and a camouflage for broader cultural changes that he claims have undermined military cohesion and effectiveness. Now, in this article as well, they acknowledge that actually Pete Hegseth referred to the decision. He was pretty ambivalent about it. He actually didn't care about the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell initially, right? He was just like, it is what it is. Now, my full perspective on this is that I agree that Don't Ask, Don't Tell should have been repealed. What I disagree with, and I actually think Hegseth is correct, when it came to this, is I disagree with how it was repealed, because it wasn't, unfortunately, the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell didn't just involve the military saying, well, if we find out that you're homosexual, we're not going to kick you out. The repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell led to the celebration of sexual orientation and gender identity, gender expression within the military. And militaries are supposed to be just about uniformity, right? They're not supposed to be about individual identity. A military that focuses on individual identity is just going to continue to degrade and get weaker and weaker because there's nothing cohesion. If you're a soldier, if you're an American soldier, you are an American soldier. You're not a Black American soldier. You're not a female American soldier, which we're going to get to that later. You're not a gay American soldier. You are none of these things. You are just an American soldier. So before we move on to the next image, I want to throw it to you guys. Alexandra, what's your initial take on this?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And that's why, unfortunately, under the Biden and Kamala Harris administration, they've moved the military, they've pushed the military to be woke. And it's really messed up what the military is all about. And that's why the Senate Republicans and so forth were freaking out when President Trump picks Pete Hegseth, because they know that he's going to crack down on the wokeism that's going on in the military. Pete never said, I don't like gays and I don't want gays to serve, but you don't have to politicize it. You don't have to make the military all about homosexuality or make the military all about genderism. And also what we're finding out is that the transgenders in the military, or people in the military that maybe have had their breasts cut off, but they haven't had their genitalia removed, they want we, the taxpayers, to pay for it. And that should not happen. And that is not right. And that is why Pete Hegseth wants to come in and bring the military back to what it once was about and get rid of all this wokeism and socialism that's been pushed through into the military.
Absolutely. Billy, what's your initial take on this?
Well, you know how I like to compare different things, and I've got another one for you. So let's look at one of the most elite force of soldiers in history before the invention of firearms. And in my opinion, that's the Spartans. And you know Greece has a history of homosexuality. And regardless of how they wanted to put the Spartan soldier, portray them on movies like 300, actually Sparta had a lot of rituals and whatnot with homosexuality too. So, but when they put together the Spartan army, yeah, there were homosexuals in the Spartan army, but they didn't care. What they cared about was having an elite force, regardless of sexual orientation. And they didn't politicize their sexual orientation because the focus was the fight. And
absolutely. And as I said earlier, obviously, repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, meaning not kicking someone out just because it's discovered that they're homosexual and then benefit for those spouses. All right. But unfortunately, the move went from just saying that we won't kick you out to promotion and celebration, which is the issue here at the end of the day. And with that, we're going to move on to this image right here. So, the Department of Defense celebrates LGBTQ+, I just freaking hate that, Pride Month in June. So here we go. This is what Pete Hegseth is talking about. He was right. It was a gateway. It was camouflage for an ulterior motive. That is what the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell became, unfortunately. It shouldn't have become that, but that's what it became. It then became about celebration of pride. And as we see, that's what's been happening here. Now, I have a video that we're going to play. It's an interview with a soldier who the Navy brought in to do drag shows. And let's just get to it. We're going to watch it. It's a little over 3 minutes long. I am going to stop it a couple times as we go because we're going to discuss this video. Because to me, the reason I chose this video is because I found it to be the very embodiment of everything that Pete Hegseth warned about in regards to where Don't Ask, Don't Tell unfortunately led to. So we're going to watch this, and like I said, we're going to pause it a little bit and discuss it as we go along.
As the Navy struggles with hitting recruitment goals, it's trying something new by embracing the LGBTQ+ community. It's a new program that uses digital ambassadors, including one member who identifies as queer and a drag queen. It's new territory for both. Pix 7's Kirsten Cole explains.
Is the Navy many of us picture fit and fearless sailors defending our nation. But this is also the Navy, a push to show just how inclusive the armed services can be and is.
The adventure is what has kept me in the Navy. Even now, I never thought I'd be able to do drag and serve at the same time. I'm an administrative clerk.
Yeoman Second Class Josh Kelly has served for 7 years and was recently tapped by the Navy to be a digital ambassador for 6 months. Josh, known as Harpy Daniels to their 1 million+ TikTok viewers, rocking a drag queen feed.
All right, now I want to touch on there. Known to their followers, right? So this is also non-binary. Keep listening. When they refer to Josh, they don't say he. They say there and they.
Oh, that crap.
The Navy's hope is that people like Kelly will help to attract the most talented and diverse workforce and combat plunging recruitment.
There were hopes, of course, to gain people to want to be recruited, but also to show people that are also in the service too that, hey, sailors like me are here, we exist, we can lead.
Kelly comes from a military family, their father having served decades in the Navy, but for a long time believed service would not be their calling. The military's evolving stance on inclusivity has included the Don't Ask, Don't Tell era, abolished in 2011 by then President Barack Obama.
There were some people that actually were still.
Oh, on that note, who was president when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was implemented? That's right, Bill Clinton.
hiding being who they were, and they so far have served 20 plus years, and they have now reached out and say, I'm coming out because of you.
While sexual identity is no longer an official barrier to service, Kelly is still facing hateful messaging. This tweet from a former Navy SEAL, part of the team credited with killing Osama bin Laden. The U.S. Navy is now using an enlisted sailor drag queen as a recruiter. I'm done. China is going to destroy us. You got this, Navy. I can't believe I fought for this. But Kelly just pushing past that and focusing on those they are inspiring.
The world can be hateful, but there's so much positive and so much light into it. You just have to find it. I really did sculpt a lot of my media then to show me in uniform, talk about the...
All right, I want to touch on that quick. Now, he said to show him in uniform, right? All right, now, from what I recall in the past, there are very strict rules about what's, our military can do in uniform, such as attend protests, make certain statements. If they're wearing that uniform, they're representing the military. I do recall articles and stories from years past of people being, disciplined in the military and even discharged if they attended protests or made public statements while wearing the uniform. And here he is making drag content, starting off with wearing his uniform. I just want to point that out.
Leadership, how to handle toxic masculinity, how to handle discrimination and oppression, not even just in the service, but just as a whole.
Josh first revealing Harpy Daniels a year into their service on board a ship when the command organized a morale-boosting lip-syncing competition in costume. With leadership permission, Josh shared Harpy. They now perform regularly in Virginia on their days off.
Since then, I've broken stigmas, I've broken stereotypes. Even at my command, I've been a community leader.
All right, sorry, I know I keep breaking it. I know I keep pausing it, but that just amused me. He's breaking stereotypes. This boy is nothing but stereotypes, but let's continue.
Involved in an advocate.
The Navy's ambassador program is over, but Josh still posting and performing, knowing this message is getting out.
Happy Pride and that you matter.
Kirsten Cole, Pix 11 News.
All right. I know I had my 2 cents in there, paused a few times. So what do you guys think? Alexandra, what's your initial take on this?
I'm just like, my eyes are so wide right now. My question is, how many people has he recruited into the military dressing as a drag queen? I didn't know we are called drag queen military. I just didn't know that. I guess that's a new name for the military. But yeah, that's what I would like to know. Has he actually succeeded in recruiting more people to the military? Again, I remind your audience, the transgender community as a whole is less than 1% of the population in the entire, not only country, but the entire world. I didn't even know what a transgender was until Barack Obama, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's ridiculous again that they're politicizing a population that is less than 1% of the entire country in the world. And what they're doing is they're making the minority the majority of this country. And then if, God forbid, you have an opinion or you don't like this, they shut you down, they silence you, they discredit you, they try to hurt your reputation and who you are. But that's why we need Pete Hegseth in there to combat this. Again, the reason he's going in there, he was appointed by President Trump, is to bring back the law and order in the military.
Yeah, absolutely. And Billy, before we get to you, I do want to say though, we after Billy, you put your opinion in on this immediate reaction. We are going to go a little bit into trans in the military because that's actually a different beast in and of its own to a degree, well, to a large degree. Billy, what's your initial take on this?
Well, I can't help but think, back in the 80s, in the Reagan era, that the America that I knew, our enemies may not have liked us, but they took us seriously. How can you take us seriously? How? I mean, and then of course you got, I'm sure, radical Islamists are sharpening their daggers and so anxious, to throw this freak off of a building.
I mean, it is insane, right? I mean, because when I think, like I said earlier, when I think about the military, I think about uniformity. I think about absolute uniformity. whatever life you came from as a civilian, whatever identity other than American that you possess takes a far back seat when you are actually in that uniform and when you are in service to your country. Your race doesn't matter. Sex doesn't matter. Your sexual orientation. None of that matters. There should be no celebration of anything other than America in the military. There should be no pride flags, BLM flags, anything like that. Those should never be on federal property or any government property, if you ask me, especially federal buildings. The pride flag being raised at capitals and all that stuff, absolutely not. Shouldn't be happening. So, yeah, like I said, Pete Hegseth had a very real point. And this video is the embodiment of that point. Now, in regards to transgender people in the military, here's what I want to say about that. Because people do conflate the two. I'm like, no, don't ask, don't tell. Being a homosexual, there are plenty of, obviously as part of this, one of the stereotypes, of incredibly physically fit homosexuals, right? Very physically fit. The only thing is it's their sexual orientation, right? But, personal story with this. I wanted to join the Navy, funny enough. I know the jokes. Because my older brother was in the Navy and I wanted to follow in his footsteps. But, turns out, I have asthma and I have hypothyroidism. I have two health conditions that require regular medication, especially the hypothyroidism. Now, because of this, I was disqualified from joining the military. And I actually support that decision, especially at that time. Of course, I would be a liability, especially in a combat zone. Now, obviously, our military is growing and developing in certain ways. So I think we're at a point where if it's like behind a computer entering code and, I don't know, controlling drones or something, all right, then maybe if you have asthma, if you have something like that, you can serve in that position. But as far as being in a combat zone, being in a war zone, if you have any kind of health condition, no, you shouldn't be there. If I was in a combat zone, my asthma could act up. If I don't have my thyroid medication, a number of issues can pop up. Now, how does this relate to trans? Well, here's how that relates. When you transition, especially if you're a biological male and you are transitioning, so trying to present as a female, you have to take hormones regularly, correct? That's medication. That is regular medication. And if you're a quote-unquote trans man, so you're a woman trying to present as male, you also are taking hormones. You're taking testosterone, correct? Now, this can fluctuate mood, other health issues, all that stuff. There is a lot of medication involved. Now, when it comes to trans women, so once again, biological men trying to present as female, a lot of people aren't aware of this. If they've had the lower half of their surgery, and I'm going to avoid getting graphic here, if they've had the lower half, what happens when a hole is put into our body that's not natural? The body tries to close it up. It tries to heal. And this is actually something a lot of people are not aware of. I wasn't either until a friend who eventually threw me out of their life, actually posted a video about this. This is an individual who transitioned from male to present as female and got the lower half surgery. He made a video where he was talking about how he has to dilate, meaning he has to take a plug and regularly insert it to keep the hole that was created from closing up. And this is a regular thing that a lot of these individuals who have the lower surgery have to do. This is a regular thing. How the heck are you going to do that regularly in a combat zone? So no. And once again, back to Alexandra, what you said, then there's the fact that they want the military, more correctly, they want the taxpayer to pay for these surgeries and these drugs. No, absolutely not.
I would throw something else in there too. Is it's not just the military, but we had an incident here in Idaho where this man who wanted to be a woman put in a petition that basically would put the cost of the surgery onto the taxpayers, and our governor said no. But then higher authority overrid him, and they got the surgery at we the taxpayers' expense. So it's happening in prisons too.
Oh yeah, no, it is. It's and what have we also seen come from this, right? We've seen pregnancies, we've seen rape, and this is documented. I believe one prison. I have to look this up, but I recall there being at least 2 or 3 pregnancies that occurred at a prison that allowed men to be put in the prison system with women.
Yeah,
all right, that's insane, Alexandra. What?
I was going to take it even a step further because I am involved a lot with the school boards nationwide. And that's the biggest thing right now is this gender identity curriculum, specifically in a lot of liberal states. And we have a lot of conservatives that are now on the school board that are trying to get rid of the gender identity and focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic. And also having trans women in sports, that affects, the women's records, and also having a trans woman in a locker room or a trans woman in the same bathroom as other women. There's been reports of rapes with that too. And I have, young nieces and nephews. I have my oldest niece is 10 going on 40. She's very mature for her age, but my sister does not feel comfortable with a trans woman coming into the same bathroom as her or going into the same locker room as her because the majority of them still have their male parts. And it's very disgusting and very disturbing. It's
disgusting, disturbing, but it's just deeply offensive at the end of the day. And if anyone really pays attention, so it's interesting because I've said this many times, and I'll just continue to say it, especially when it comes to trans children, which there's no such thing as a trans child. But if you ever notice when you listen to parents who encourage this and push it actually onto their children, and they describe their child being trans, how they knew. These are also the same people that talk about how offensive gender stereotypes are, but when they talk about how they knew their child was trans, it's always gender stereotypes. Little Sally didn't want to wear dresses. Screamed when we tried to put her in dresses, so we knew she was a boy because she wanted to play with the boys and be like a boy and all this stuff. When I was younger, I thank the Lord that I was not born during this era, because when I was younger, I would steal my cousin who lived with us. I would steal her Barbies and give her my toy trucks. I was a girly boy. So I can only, and look at me now, I am very comfortable being a man. So I can only imagine if I had those types of parents back then, what would have happened to me, what hell I would have been put through if I was that same child right now. It's absolutely terrifying.
I agree with you. And a 3-year-old doesn't even, I shouldn't say shouldn't think about, am I a man? Am I a woman? Should I have sex with this person? Should I have sex with that person? And there's states like in the state of Minnesota, thank God Tim Walz didn't win, where he signed into executive order that a 3-year-old can go to a doctor if they're a woman and they want to become a man. They can say to the doctor, I want to become a man, and they do not have to have parental consent. And that is disgusting because then the kid is becoming the adult. Why is a 3-year-old even thinking of changing their bodies? That is the last thing that a 3-year-old should be thinking about.
Yeah, real quick too. This, I don't have proof of this. I don't have any links, but rumor has it too that in Minnesota, I guess an 8-year-old girl who was, she obsessed with breasts, and a lot of girls are that way before puberty. I understand because my younger sister was that way. In Minnesota they gave an 8-year-old girl breast enlargements.
Yeah, I read that too. Because of that executive order. That's the craziness of Tim Walz, of the governor.
All the insanity here. I mean, to bring us back though to Pete Hegseth and the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and why he later came to not agree with the repeal, or at least have criticism of the repeal, is because what we're talking about, it helped encourage all this in the culture. Unfortunately, like I said, what the repeal should have been is, all right, you're homosexual, all right, you're not going to get kicked out. When it shouldn't have been is, oh, you're a homosexual, let's celebrate. That's not what it should have been, because it led to absolute ridiculousness, just like the video I played. So does anyone have anything to add to the end of this?
Well, I just have to say, when we go, as military, we serve under the American flag. We don't serve under the gay pride flag or a BLM flag or an Antifa flag.
Exactly. All right. So with that, we're going to move on to the next big one, which is obviously Pete Hegseth's view when it comes to women serving combat roles. Now, we're definitely going to have an interesting take on this because I got some videos to really add to this.
Me too.
Women in combat. Take a listen.
As everybody knows, between bone density and lung capacity and muscle strength, men and women are just different. And so if you want to, I'm okay with the idea that you maintain the standards where they are for everybody. And if there's some, hard charging female that meets that standard, great, cool, join the infantry battalion. But that is not what's happened.
Yeah.
What has happened is the standards have lowered because the general comes by and asks a question. You know what questions are when generals ask questions. They're just a command. Lieutenant or captain or major, why aren't there more women in your unit? That means get some more women in your unit now. And that moves all the way through the training pipeline. And so I'm surprised there hasn't been more blowback on that already in the book, because I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated.
Now, a few things about this. He was specific in this interview, was he not? He said combat roles. He wasn't talking about at home. He wasn't even, he was talking about combat roles. And he was mentioning, I really asked for anyone to tell me what lie he said during this. Men and women are different. Men on average are stronger than women. That's just a fact. I mean, I know you're probably going to mention, oh, well, I know this one woman who's a bodybuilder, muscle bound. I promise you, that same woman, if you were to take a man who's also a bodybuilder, who's muscle bound, who does the same routine that she does, he's going to be stronger than her. I promise you that. So where was the lie? But again, I want to stress, he's talking specifically about combat roles here. He's not talking about any other aspect. He's talking about being in the war zone where it can result in a face-to-face, fist-to-fist, gun-to-gun confrontation. Alexandra, what's your initial take on it?
Well, I have two takes on it. So this reminds me of the story of Jessica Lynch, if you remember her. So she was heavily in a platoon with a bunch of men. She was the only woman there. I can't remember. I think she was in Afghanistan. And they got diverted, unfortunately. And all the men in her unit were instantly murdered. And the enemies, the Taliban, they kidnapped Jessica Lynch. And of course, they did heinous things to her. But people have said, why was Jessica Lynch put in that position? Because she was put into a combat role. She was put into a very dangerous role where she could have been raped, she could have been killed, tortured, which she wasn't killed, but she was tortured almost to death. I also think of the Israeli Defense Force. So the Israeli Defense Force, under the law with Israel, men and women are mandated to serve in the army at the age of 18 for 3 years, mandation. They are taught, any circumstance alive. But once they finish their training, they go directly into full-on full-on military, full-on service, excuse me, that's the word I was looking for. What the Prime Minister of Israel, Shin Bet, which is the head of the IDF, they make sure that they keep the women out of those war zones. They keep the women out of combat because they feel, like you said, that men are stronger than women, but they want to keep the women as protected as much as possible. So they try not to put the women in the most dangerous areas. So that, and like I said, I know Pete very well, and I know his history with Israel and where he served and so forth. I feel like that's what he was saying in this moment, is that we need to protect our women, but when we keep putting our women into horrible situations like what happened with Jessica Lynch, it looks very weak on our military. Oh,
absolutely. And I mean, like you said right there, right, he mentioned combat specifically. So I think the fact he mentioned combat obviously highlights exactly what you said and what you believe he was saying here, because to me, that's exactly what he's saying. Billy, what's your initial take? Oh, Billy, your mic's off. It's on mute.
You muted yourself.
Okay, that's better. Okay, first off, what's that acronym that they're talking about? About inclusive? I forgot what it's called. But here's the thing: it makes me think of something that's happening right now as we speak. The fires in Los Angeles.
Oh, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. I got a video for that. We're gonna get there, but continue, Billy.
Okay, so I agree. Mr. Hegseth is not saying women don't belong in the military, but I think he's saying there's certain situations in combat that they do not. That's strictly meant for men, and that goes the same for police and firefighters. Like part of the reason why LA is ablaze right now is because of how they've weakened the fire department in Los Angeles because of this very thing. Aside, there's homeless people having campfires, and of course the water. That's another issue. But they also don't have men where men need to be.
Mm-hmm. And it actually, talking about the wokeness, there's a picture that I think embodies the wokeness. There's a picture of a fire hydrant that's painted pride colors, the rainbow, and behind it, the whole area is ablaze. I mean, to me, if you want to talk about symbolism, right there is a bunch of symbolism when it comes to California, unfortunately, which our prayers go out to all those impacted, because regardless of how we feel about California and its politics and how people vote in California, we don't want to see anyone go through this kind of thing. It's horrific. And seriously, God bless them. Absolutely, God bless them. But yeah, I mean, so I want to jump beyond it, because here's the thing, right? Again, he said in combat, and I actually know a woman who served in the military in Israel, Alexandra, and she actually described what you just talked about. Her role specifically was she became really good. She was always really good, had a knack for reading body language. So she became an individual who they bring in to observe interrogations, questioning, and she would read the body language of the person who was being asked questions. That was her job, because she was really good at paying attention to eye movement, finger movement, all that body language, right? Obviously, I'm not going to say who this individual is or anything, but she talked about this, and this is what she did, which to me, that's a completely reasonable role for a woman to have in the military.
And most of the women that serve in the IDF, they are in roles like that, or they're behind a desk, doing the Morse code and writing to, America or other countries. That's the role that in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, they try to do. And I know that the American military over the years has tried to kind of emulate the Israeli Defense Force. I feel that Pete Hegseth will come in and try to emulate the Israeli Defense Force a little bit, which in my opinion would make our military a lot stronger.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you compare, there was a video made where there was a comparison between a Russian ad for the military, for their military, and an American one. And the American one, you had a woman who was joining the military talking about how she was raised by her lesbian mothers and how that, contributed to her values and all that. And it's like, what? Oh, goodness. No wonder. No, I mean, like they in the news footage when they were talking about the one they showed, that guy saying, "This is what I fought for." It's absolutely insane. So another thing that did happen, though, and I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, is that a number of years ago, there actually was a study done regarding the military and units and women being in military units. So right here, we have this up on the screen. So this is from a Reuters article. Oh, unfortunately, that is blurred. That was not blurred last time I checked. Let me get it up. Oh, okay, it looks a little bit better. So they did a study. The Marine Corps, the U.S. Marine Corps, did a study examining how women would perform in ground combat roles, and showed all male units broadly outperformed mixed gender units. This was in regards to things like accuracy and handling heavier weapons. So this was a study that was actually done. The study consisted of 400 soldiers, 400 Marines, 100, so a quarter of them were women, and they compared these units, the all-male units to the mixed units, and the all-male units on every level outperformed. That's just a fact. That is just a fact at the end of the day. Alexandra, what do you have to say with that?
Yeah, I agree with those statistics. I agree with what Reuters put out. And it's that narrative that we're going by is that men are made to do certain things. Women are made to do certain things. Mm-hmm. Just because a woman isn't as strong as a man doesn't mean that they're a weaker person in the military or they can't do it. It's just men are designed to have certain roles and women are designed to have certain roles.
Absolutely. And Pete Hegseth actually mentioned something that I also agree with, and a lot of people I know. I think one of the issues, and Billy, I'm going to throw this one to you after I highlight a bit, is the fact that standards were lowered, right? I mean, if they kept the standards high for everyone, because to be honest, I think the standards, what he said, if a woman meets that bar, if they kept those high standards and a woman meets that bar, oh, heck yeah, all right. Sure, you earned that. But part of the issue is they lowered those standards. They lowered those standards and they made that focused on women. And that is wrong. That is one of the biggest issues that we have here, is that is how you make our military weaker, is by lowering standards, just like they do in our education system. When they see a certain demographic not performing as well, instead of, study halls, all that kind of stuff, investing in that, they just lower the standards for everyone. They lower the bar for everyone. And unfortunately, that's what's been destroying our education system. And that's also what's destroying our military. Billy, I'm going to throw it to you quick.
Well, you said it right there. This is what I call dumbing down. Of course, when we go into combat and they lower the standards, our enemies, they didn't lower their standards, especially look how serious they train in countries like Iran. They're not going to lower their standards just because we did. In fact, they're going to overpower us if we keep this crap up, And I mean, this sort of thing, like I've stated many times, what happens in the country of South Africa mirrors over to the United States. Well, something they've done over in South Africa, they have such a poor healthcare system over there, because to become a doctor with a passing rate, all you need is a 35%. I mean, come on, 50% is an F. So, but no, you can get 30% and get that degree to become a doctor. The first ever heart transplant happened in South Africa, the first successful one. And sadly, it was during the apartheid era. Now, of course, I don't agree with how things run under apartheid. That was a lot of segregation that didn't need to happen. But at that time, South Africa had a stable economy and low crime. And now when there's black people, law-abiding black people over in South Africa saying, we want apartheid back, that says a lot to me. So, they've lowered the standards. What, 35% is all you need? Are you going to trust somebody to operate on you?
And Billy, sorry to cut in there, but what's crazy is because even beyond that, this lowering of standards is insulting to the demographic that these individuals say. That's also the biggest thing that they just ignore altogether, is how insulting it is to the demographic that they say that they're doing this for. ID for voting, right? For another example, I forget who it was, did a video where he went out on the streets and asked black people that he interacted with, he says, do you know where your DMV is? Do you have an ID? And they all said yes. And he goes, well, apparently a lot of people on the left, they think you're too stupid to find your DMV and can't afford an ID or any kind of ID to get any kind of ID. It really is insulting. The lowering of standards, it's what's the phrasing for it? It's soft bigotry, as they call it, or it really is. It is a type of bigotry. Well, when you look at a demographic and say, we need to lower all these standards, we need to dumb this down for this people, this demographic, what are you saying about that demographic?
Well, how about the speech this last spring from Biden at that college or school? I can't remember, school, high school, college, whatever it was. And there's Biden talking to these graduates. You will never get this way. You will never achieve this. You were basically, okay, just say it out. You're never going to achieve it because you're black. That's what you're saying.
Well, look at this election we just had. I mean, I had liberal women come to me and they're like, you're not going to vote for Kamala Harris? You know, she's a woman. You got to vote for her because she's a woman.
Oh, my
and she lost. But instead of her saying, you know, I lost because I just was a really crappy candidate, she said, I lost because of the white male. That's because of the misogynism out there. That's why I lost. No, you lost because you were a terrible candidate. And I voted for President Trump because he resonates with me and my standards of what I want as the president of the United States. I'm not going to vote for her just because she's a woman. That's ridiculous. Just like I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. People said you should vote for Hillary Clinton. She's a white woman. Aren't you white? And it's like ridiculous. I'm like, no, I voted for President Trump because he meets my standards.
Exactly. I vote with my values, and I vote as an American. I don't vote with my genitals. I don't vote with my sexual attraction. I don't vote with any of that. I vote with my values and my identity as an American. That's how I vote.
How about this, Kevin? I had somebody tell me that I should be all for defunding the police because I look like an outlaw.
No. Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God.
That's great. I love that one. I love that.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. The one thing for sure though is Las Vegas was sure a safer place when the mafia ran it.
And this is what's tragic, right? Is that it's just absolute insanity. Well, I do want us to move us along though, because there's a bit more to cover with this one. We're actually going to go how this push in the military of women in positions that require, well, physical strength and endurance that, statistically speaking, majority of women don't have in comparison to men. We're going to now go from the military and how this has bled into society to a larger degree, especially in states like California. This right here has become one of my favorite videos to laugh at, just because, well, you'll see.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better.
All right, I want to pause that quick, all right? Because if I'm in a fire, and I don't know, I broke my leg or something like that, and someone comes in, right? The firefighter comes in. I personally am not looking for someone who looks like me. I am 5'8". I am overweight. I have asthma. I'm not looking for that even to come in the building when it's on fire to save me. I'm looking for a hulk of a man. I'm looking for a man to come in who looks like he can grab me with one arm, throw me over his shoulder, and carry me out of that damn burning building. That's what I'm looking for when that kind of situation is taking place, right? So no, I'm not looking for someone who looks like me. I'm looking for someone who's a Hulk. So let's finish this one up, though.
Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
So, all right, let's go into that quick, because then I'm going to throw it to you, Alexandra. Right there, though, I will say this much. I appreciate her honesty with this, right? Now, the proper feminist response to that would have been, well, a woman can do everything a man can do, right? But she, in this video, you realize, though, her response, she admitted that a woman can't. She did it in a roundabout way. Now, in traditional feminist fashion, she put that blame on the man, right? She said the man shouldn't have put himself in a position where he needs rescuing. Now, I would love, if you listen to that, that is what she said. He wouldn't need rescuing if he hadn't put himself in a position to need rescuing. I'd love for her to have said that about a woman. I would love for her to have said that about a woman. I guarantee you that would have gone very differently for her. So those two things together. No, I'm not looking for someone who looks like me to save me. And I want to at least thank her for being honest that, first of all, she can't rescue a man, and that, well, she hates men, and she thinks that if a man's in a desperate situation, he has always just put himself in that. Because that's what I got from that video. Alexandra?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm one of those women that if, God forbid, I was in a fire, I'm looking for that hot, smoking hot, muscular man to come lift me up, put me over his shoulder. If we get married, that's even better. But I mean, it's true. I mean, and me growing up, in Sarasota, Florida, that was the envision of firefighters. When we had firefighters and police officers come to our schools, they were all men. I didn't see one female police officer, one female firefighter. That's not to say that they're not good. It's just when they wanted to give us the persona of a policeman or a firefighter, it was always that male vision, that man who was strong, that man, who was muscular, that could carry us. And I can understand, and even it's funny when you look at books of people rescuing cats or rescuing dogs up on a tree. Do you see a woman going up that ladder and pulling that cat from the tree? No, you mostly see a man doing that. So it's not that the woman can't do it. It's what we were saying before. Women have certain roles, and especially with the Los Angeles fires. I mean, could you imagine a woman picking up one of these, big actors, like a James Woods or John Goodman or one of these big actors out of their house? No, you would envision a man rescuing them.
Exactly. Billy, I know you touched on this earlier, and now we're at it. We're here. What's your take on that video?
I mean, I can only see this opening the door to more negligences, to be honest with you. You're white. Let me get you a white person to help you.
But seriously, honestly, I mean, if there was like a muscle-bound, bodybuilding, woman that came in, I might feel a bit differently. But even then, I mean, aren't there, rules against like steroid use or something? I just honestly, but to be fair, if I saw a 5'5" twig of a man come into that fire, I'd also be like, nah, my 200+ butt is probably gonna die now. If a twig of a man and I'm 5'8" and he was like 5'5" came in, I'd probably accept that we're not going to make it out of that fire. So it's not just about that. There is a certain thing I'm looking, once again, for that Hulk.
Yeah, and I would feel comfortable with a twig of a woman saving me because I'm not a size 0, so she'll make me feel so fat and so just not to the right standards. I'd feel like I need to go on a starvation diet if I see a size 0 woman firefighter trying to my behind up.
What did you come out of the fire with? An eating disorder?
Yeah, exactly. What did you come out of the fire with? An eating disorder. Thank you.
So with that, I got another video though that I gotta play because this is about police officers. I don't know where this video was taken, but to me it is another video that it just embodies everything we're talking about here. It's quite entertaining.
Oh boy.
Oh, I think you both are gonna love this one. Where are you? Here we go. Right here.
Oh, Monsieur Egon. Oh, Oliver. Monsieur Egon.
All right. So they left the handcuffs, right? Now I wanna move. I'm gonna replay this quick, and I'm gonna pause it at a certain point. All right. Right there. All right, I'm gonna pause it there. This is why, right? These are two pretty stocky women, right? I'm not calling them fat, right? I'm just saying they're not twig women even, right? Those two female officers, right? This is a twig of a man. I swear, my 7-year-old godson could probably pick him up, and has thicker arms. Look at those twig legs and those twig arms. Yeah, even as a twig man, he was able to get away from these two more so built women, right? And then, of course, they end up leaving their handcuffs right there on the ground as they drive off. So I'm just gonna, I guess people are gonna take this video as they're gonna be like, well, it's just one example, but I think it's a pretty stark, it is a pretty glaring example. We have a twig man, a guy that I could probably lift with one arm and throw him, and I'm out of shape, getting away from two fairly stocky, sturdy women, female police officers. Alexandra, I'm gonna throw it to you.
I mean, this is incompetence on a whole new level. It shows that the training wasn't there, but also shows that these women didn't even try to run after the guy. And that's, or what should have happened is one woman should have tried to run after him, and then another woman should have jumped in the car to follow right behind. But another example of this that everybody can watch is the women that were a part of the United States Secret Service on the day of Butler, Pennsylvania, with the assassination against President Trump. And we did find out that a lot of those women weren't even part of the United States Secret Service. They were from DHS. But there was one woman who is very short. She's like 5'4", and she's short and stocky. The women couldn't even put the guns in the holster. That's like gun owning 101. They couldn't even put the guns in the holster. And you have a 5'4" woman who's there to protect a man who's 6'4". He's over 200 pounds. He also has children that they protect. His son Barron is 6'7" on his way to being 6'9".
Exactly.
Eric Trump is 6'6". Don Jr.'s up in the 6s, and you have these 5'4", 5'5" women, short and stocky, protecting the president and his children. That's why President Trump now has all male Secret Service, and if you see them now, they're over 6 feet. They're muscular men,
as they should be.
And it's not because women can't do it. It's because, first of all, he's the president. He's the president of the United States, and he's the president-elect. He's going to be president January 20th. You have to have the proper people protecting the president, but you can't have these incompetent women that don't even know what the heck they're doing. And you can see in this video that these women are incompetent and they don't know what the heck they're doing.
Exactly. Billy?
Well, it's just as Alexandra said, there's a lot of lack of training. I'd like to know what academy they went to, because I know plenty of female police officers that would have handled that guy with ease, and that wouldn't have happened. So we can't really say this is an issue. Well, if men were arresting him, he wouldn't have gotten away. No, because if those men were trained by the same class as these women, I think the result might be the same. So this is incompetence on the police right here.
But also, Billy, on that note, though, that would require certain hold techniques, right? We're outlawing those. Remember, we're making certain holds. We're outlawing those. We're basically making it so that the cops can't even touch the person. That's where we're heading. So I do agree. The training is obviously horrible, but they each had an arm at one point, and the one she's trying to kick his leg, it's all over a disaster. Now, I'm not saying this wouldn't happen at all with men, but actually, to get on that, as you said, all the current guards for Trump, right? They're over 6 feet tall and they are built. I wouldn't expect a man who's 5'5" and thin to be protecting Trump either, because Trump's going to tower over him and be a target, be more of a visible target. So you're right in all regards. I mean, if they found like a Nordic muscle-bound woman, all right, we can have a bit of a discussion there, but she'd have to pass the same physical requirements as any man, first off. So I'm not saying that no woman can do these things. There's exceptions to every rule. We know this. But statistically speaking, men are going to do these things better. That's just biological fact. So with that, if there's nothing more in regards to... one more thing I want to add, and I want to get your opinion on. Also, another reason why I don't support this, why I am deeply concerned when I see female officers like this, is men, full-grown, men, even muscular police officers, they have trouble with truly psychotic, enraged criminals all the time. Someone who's hopped up on drugs, who tasers won't affect them, who, all that stuff, right? Even physically fit male officers have trouble with these individuals, you're going to put women up against these individuals. You're going to get a lot more shootings, all right? Mm-hmm. You're going to have a lot more situations where the female police officer, since guns are equalizers, she's going to feel compelled to pull her gun a lot sooner than a male officer because she knows that this 6'3", over 200 to 300 pound built man who's hyped up or having a psychotic break, he's going to destroy her. Mm-hmm. It's not to say a male officer won't get trigger happy, but a woman's going to know instinctually that her best odd is to shoot him first, not try to subdue him.
I want to share something with you really quick, Kevin. Is back in my younger days when I struggled with drugs myself. I only know one person personally that took PCP or angel dust, whatever you want to call it. That's one of the things I've never done. I've never done heroin and I've never done PCP. And I thank God that I never did. But I watched this dude who was on PCP kick a toilet out, kick the fixing and broke the porcelain with his shin.
Oh my God.
And his shin's bleeding, probably broken, I don't remember. And he's still standing there like nothing's going to stop him. Had it been this individual, that these two ladies were trying to subdue.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly. This would have been very different.
I mean, I saw the look in his eyes like it was the coldest, deadest look I ever saw. I was so damn scared. I turned around and I ran out of there. I wanted to get as far away from him as possible. That was so scary.
Exactly. If this situation right here hadn't been a twig guy who wanted to just get away, and it had been that 6'3" physically built man on something, he either would have had to have been shot or he would have seriously harmed those women. Yep. That's just a fact. Alexandra, I'm going to give you the last comment on this, and then we're going to move on to Hegseth's qualifications.
Well, I'm just saying to myself, where was the mace? Like, why didn't these women mace this guy? Why didn't they kick him in the nuts, to put him in that car? That would have been my instinct, even as a woman. We were taught in the IDF, if a man's coming behind you, there's different positions, different ways to combat them. But if the guy's in front of you, you put the mace on him and then you go for the next big thing that can paralyze him. And of course, that's kicking a guy in the nuts or kicking the guy in the inner thigh, not kicking him in the leg, which propelled that guy that we saw in the video to actually break away and break away from the woman kicking him in the leg, but break away from the arm pulling as well.
Well, Alexandra, the problem is then you're asking them to assume gender, and we don't do that. No.
Maybe he didn't have a penis,
Hey, the knee works.
Exactly. So I think overall, these past two clips that I shared, one with the firefight with the female firefighter, and then with these officers, I think this perfectly demonstrates why Pete Hegseth has the views that he does regarding specifically women in combat. And I'm going to stress that once again. Pete Hegseth is not against women in the military. In that interview, he is specifically referencing women in combat roles. And I have yet to see anything that Pete Hegseth has said, any statements he's made, that hasn't had truth tied to it. With that, we are going to move on and briefly discuss his qualifications. Because as we know, that I think is their final, Hail Mary. That is where all his opponents are trying to. Now, I pulled this off of a simple Google search. It's Wikipedia. I know you'd get in trouble in school if you try to use Wikipedia as a source, but I just did a quick Google in regarding his Pete Hegseth experience. So obviously, he served, Army National Guard, District of Columbia, Army National Guard, for those two locations. Iraq war in Afghanistan. He has won medals. I believe it's actually 2 Bronze Stars, Army Commendation Medal, Combat Infantryman badge. So he does have accomplishments. Is he high ranking? No, he's not high ranking. That's true. But to be fair, right now we have high ranking individuals who don't know what a woman is and celebrate Pronoun Day, International Pronoun Day. So, yeah, I'm going to look more to Pete Hegseth for direction when it comes to military than I am someone celebrating Pronoun Day and that they are this accomplished general or whatever it may be. Alexandra, I'm going to throw it to you quick. What do you think about Hegseth's qualifications?
I think he's very qualified, and he also has had to explain to a lot of the Senate Republicans, his comments, and he has even said to Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa, who also served our military, that I do believe in women in the military. It's just certain women need to be in certain roles, and that's actually kind of helped him get the Senate Republicans, like the rhinos like Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, to kind of go more towards his way. All he's been doing, which is really sad, is he's had to thoroughly explain, what his role is really going to be and how he does accept women into the military. He would never attack a woman for being in the military. And I know Marines, I know people in the Army Reserves, and we look at our Joint Chiefs of Staffs. I mean, those guys are at the top, and they're the ones, unfortunately, that are pushing a lot of the wokeism and the socialism into our government. Those are the ones that push for the forcination of, the mandation of vaccines in the military, which has really hurt a lot of our military. And there's a lot of people that are having adverse side effects, especially in the military, from the vaccines. And in the military under Joe Biden, he didn't just ask you to take 1 or 2 shots. He made you take 4, 5, 6, 7 shots of the COVID-19 vaccine.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he took 200 himself. That's a joke, exactly. People. That is a joke. I know we still have
a lot of people's careers because of that. But yeah, I mean, going back to Pete's qualifications, yeah, I mean, objectively, if I was just a senator, not even Republican, independent, Democrat, I would look at him and what he's done and what he wants to do. And I would say, you know what, Pete, you're right. We need a regroup, a reshape, a renaissance of the military. And we appreciate your service. And we think that you'd be best to serve the Secretary of Defense.
Absolutely. Billy, what's your take?
Well, first off, if somebody wants to really push the pronoun crap and all that, they've instantly lost credibility with me. Pete Hegseth, even though I really haven't watched much of him on Fox News, but, say that Wikipedia is correct, these are qualifying statistics that, I think he is the right man for the job.
Absolutely. And I know he's about, and you spoke to this, Alexandra, that, he's about to go, get put up there. He's about to be grilled. I think that he is going to be passed. I know in the beginning, every political commentator I listen to now say that they think he's going to sail through. Right. Mm-hmm. That's what they see happening. He was one of the top ones they were worried about. Now he's fallen, I think below not just, Tulsi Gabbard even and RFK Jr. Mm-hmm. But so, yeah, we expect him to definitely slide through on this. But I think at the end of the day, all these issues, like I said, anything he's spoken to, it's been proven he has valid points to make. When he's spoken about don't ask, don't tell, he was valid in that, because unfortunately where it went was to an identity victimhood place that's only served to weaken our military. When he speaks about women in combat roles specifically, he's correct, because it does hurt us at the end of the day. And we even have studies that support this. And we see that reflected in our society when it comes to our firefighters and when it comes to our police officers as well. So I have yet to really see where anyone has proven Pete Hegseth wrong in regards to any of the statements that he has made.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
So with that, I'm going to give you each time give some final thoughts on this. I think that's pretty much mine. I think he's good to go, and I support him, and I can't wait for him to be, leading our Department of Defense. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting the woke out of the military. I'm looking forward to just seeing the American flag, not the pride flag, and especially not that hideous progress flag. Come on, I thought gays had better standards. Well, let's face it, it's not about the gays anymore in the quote unquote community. It's about the TQ plus. So I'm looking forward to getting rid of the BLM flags, all that stuff when it comes to our military, and just being Americans again in regards to our military. So with that, Alexandra, closing statements in regards to this.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm so happy that President Trump nominated Pete Hegseth. I had the pleasure of meeting him many times at CPAC, and he was just a gentleman to me. I didn't feel uncomfortable being around him, and I did meet his wife and his family, and he was just so sweet. And his love for the military just pours out in everything that he says, whether it's behind the camera, in front of the camera. He's just a very sincere, genuine man. And it's very sad that the media and that the leftists and the Marxists and the rhinos in the deep state have tried to hurt this man and hurt his reputation in the military. But as we know, truth always prevails, and he will, I know for a fact he will slide through, just like you said, Kevin. And when he slides through, oh my God, I mean, it's just going to be great. It's going to be sweet, sweet revenge for all those people that spoke ill about him. And all I can say to your audience is just to continue to pray for him and to pray for his family. I also say continue to pray for President Trump and his family, because I don't know, a lot of people and a lot of friends in my circle, they don't think that President Trump's going to get in the White House so easy. They feel that there's still going to be some hurdles, some jumps down the road. So we continue to pray for the president, pray for his family. But I'm very happy that the president did nominate Pete, and I wholeheartedly believe that he will go through with flying colors.
Absolutely. Billy.
Well, first off, Kevin, I want to thank you for having Alexandra and I on to discuss.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Yes. You know, we'll have to see how the transition goes. I mean, I'm obviously going to support Pete Hegseth above any candidate I think the left wants to push through, especially if they are coming from the Biden administration, because I mean, let's just face it, the last 4 years have been a Charlie Foxtrot, just to put it nicely. You know, there is a big mess that Trump is walking into, him and his establishment are coming into, and it's going to take some time. You know, one thing I want people to stop doing is looking at Trump like he's Jesus or he's Moses going to part the Red Sea, or some wizard who's going to wave a wand and everything's fixed overnight. That's not the way it works. Obama lost supporters because they expected that from him. Trump's not going to do it either. It's, you know, we have to work with him. What are the first 3 words of the Constitution? We the people.
Which Hegseth has tattooed on his arm.
Yeah. So, you know, if we expect change, we got to help make that change. We can't put the full load on Trump to do it, because he can't do it.
Absolutely. I think voter expectations is a conversation that we have desperately needed to have in this nation for quite some time. And I think we need to have it more often, because it's also how we end up with the horrible politicians that we do get, is because we have unrealistic expectations. And therefore, no decent politician can let us have our cake and eat it too. So with that, I'm going to have each of you let my viewers know where they can find you. But first, I do want to reference the comments quickly. To those listening, unfortunately, I did get a message saying that unfortunately on my end, the system can't post comments from some destination. So if you've commented on, for example, Facebook, we might not be getting those comments. Vinny, thank you for being in there with us through all this. He is stating that his pronouns are that beast. So
I love it.
So thank you for your contributions during the stream, Vinny. It's been greatly appreciated. With that, Alexandra, where can everyone find you?
Sure. So you can find me on Facebook, Alexandra Levine. I'm also on X at Alexandra Levi 20. I'm on Instagram, AirLevine85, True Social, AirLevine85, and on YouTube at Levine Consulting.
Awesome. Billy?
Well, of course, there's my website, my organization, the Bearded Patriots, of course, thebeardedpatriots.com. You see my X handle, Patriots Bearded. That Alexandra and I, we both have shows on the Patriots Prayer Network, which you can find us, and you can find a few other Patriots on there by going to thepatriotsprayer.com.
Awesome. And by the way, people, I will also update the description with links to where you can find these two amazing individuals and learn more about them and their positions. And just in general, what they have to say, because I mean, they have some amazing things to say here. Thank you all for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you next time. And don't worry, I'm not going to disappear for the better part of a year this time. Anyways, have a good one, everyone. God bless.